On Thanksgiving Day, my daughter Julia looked me in the eye, in front of 17 guests, and said, "Mama, you'll eat in the kitchen. After we're done. Staff eats last." I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for a seat at that table. I said nothing. I just picked up the tray, the one I'd spent 9 hours preparing, the glazed ham that had been in my family for 4 generations, the collard greens my grandmother taught me to season when I was 7 years old, the macaroni and cheese my late husband Patrick used to say was better than heaven itself. And I walked out the front door. No one stopped me. I'm Kathleen Washington O'Reilly. I'm 68 years old. And I want to tell you my story. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end, because what happened after I walked out that door? Well, it changed everything. Not just for me, for my whole family. And maybe, if you've ever felt invisible in your own life, it'll change something for you, too. The morning started the way Thanksgiving mornings always did in my family. I woke up at 4:30 in the darkness, my hands already reaching for the apron hanging on the back of my bedroom door. Not because anyone asked me to, because that's what I'd been doing for 47 years. Cooking was my language, my mother's language, her mother's language before her. We were Mississippi women. We came up during Jim Crow, when a black woman's worth was measured by how well she could stretch a dollar, how clean she kept her house, and how good her food tasted even when there wasn't much of it. My grandmother, Ruthie Mae Washington, used to say, "Baby girl, they can take a lot of things from us, but they can't take what we put in this pot. That's ours. That's power." I believed her. I still do. Patrick O'Reilly understood that about me. He was Irish, red-haired, blue-eyed, with freckles across his nose like constellations. We met in 1976 at the restaurant where I worked as a line cook. I was 22. He was 24, fresh out of the shipyard, still smelling like diesel and salt water. He came in every Thursday night and ordered the same thing: fried chicken, greens, cornbread. After 3 months, he finally worked up the courage to ask me my name. "Kathleen," I told him. "That's a strong name," he said. "Irish, you know." "I know," I said. My daddy liked the sound of it, said it had dignity. He was right, Patrick said. And then he smiled at me. Really smiled. Not the way white men usually looked at black women in those days, with assumptions and entitlement, but with genuine warmth. "Would you let me take you to dinner sometime, somewhere you don't have to cook?" We married 8 months later. His family didn't speak to him for 2 years. Mine worried he'd break my heart, or worse. But Patrick O'Reilly loved me with his whole chest. He loved my cooking, yes. But more than that, he loved watching me cook, the way my hands moved, the way I tasted and adjusted, the way I hummed old spirituals while I worked. "You're an artist, Kathleen," he'd say. "Don't let anyone tell you different." We had 2 daughters. Grace was born in 1978, Julia in 1980. Grace was gentle from the start, quiet, observant, the kind of child who said please before she could say full sentences. Julia was fire, loud, demanding, brilliant, exhausting. I loved them both with everything I had. But I won't lie to you, Grace was easier to love. And maybe, in ways I didn't even realize at the time, I showed it. Patrick died 12 years ago this past March. Heart attack. Sudden. He kissed me goodbye that morning, told me he'd be home for dinner, and by noon, he was gone. Grace held my hand at the funeral. Julia stood 3 feet away, stiff-backed, dry-eyed, angry at a God she'd stopped believing in years before. "We'll get through this, Mama," Grace whispered. And we did. For a while. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to that Thanksgiving morning. I stood in Julia's kitchen, the kitchen in the house I'd moved into 2 years prior, after Julia convinced me I couldn't manage on my own anymore, and I prepared a feast. The ham went into the oven at 5:15, basted every 45 minutes with a glaze made from brown sugar, pineapple juice, cloves, and a secret ingredient I've never written down. The collard greens simmered low and slow with smoked turkey necks, vinegar, and just enough sugar to cut the bitterness. The macaroni and cheese, Lord the macaroni and cheese, was a production. 3 types of cheese, heavy cream, eggs, butter, a crust on top that crackled when you cut into it. I made cornbread from scratch, candied yams with pecans, green bean casserole, potato salad, cranberry sauce with orange zest. dinner rolls that had to be kneaded and left to rise twice, and a pecan pie that Patrick once said could make a grown man weep. By 11 o'clock, every surface in that kitchen was covered. Pots, pans, bowls, cutting boards. The air was thick with heat and the smell of butter, sugar, and spice. My feet ached. My lower back was screaming. But I was happy, because this is what I did. This is who I was. Julia walked in around 11:30, already dressed in her cream-colored cashmere sweater and pearls. She looked beautiful. She always did. 38 years old, with my cheekbones and Patrick's light eyes, an unsettling combination that made people stare. "Mama, why is it so hot in here?" she said, not looking at me, opening the window above the sink. "I've been cooking since 4:30, baby. That's why." She glanced at the stove, the counters, the oven. "You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to. It's too much." She opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of white wine, poured herself a glass, even though it wasn't even noon. "David's mother is bringing a casserole. You could have just done the ham." I kept stirring the greens. "I like to cook, you know that." Julia sipped her wine. "You should sit down, Mama. You're not as young as you used to be." I felt the sting of it, but didn't respond. This was Julia's way. Not cruel exactly, just dismissive, like I was a child who needed reminding of my limitations. "Guests start arriving at 2, she said. "Try to stay out of the way once people get here. I don't want the kitchen to look chaotic." "I'll clean as I go." "Good." She walked out, heels clicking on the hardwood floor. I stood there, wooden spoon in hand, and felt something small and cold settle in my chest. Stay out of the way, as if I were an inconvenience in the meal I was preparing. The guests began arriving at 1:45. Julia's husband, David's family. His parents, his 2 brothers and their wives. A handful of cousins I'd never met. Julia's friends from her book club. The neighbors from 2 doors down. My granddaughter, Destiny, Grace's daughter, now 16, beautiful and watchful, arrived with her other grandmother, David's mother, Patricia. Destiny found me in the kitchen, wrapping her arms around my waist from behind. "Grandma Kay," she said. That's what she called me, Grandma Kay. "It smells like heaven in here." "Baby girl," I said, turning to kiss her forehead. "You look so pretty." "You look tired," she said, and her eyes, Grace's eyes, searched my face with concern. "I'm fine, just been cooking all morning." "You shouldn't have to do all this by yourself." I wanted to. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. Destiny had learned early not to push. Life had taught her that. Grace died 8 years ago. Breast cancer. Stage 4 by the time they found it. She was only 34. Destiny was 8 years old. Patrick had been gone 4 years by then, so I couldn't lean on him. And Julia? Julia was busy. She sent flowers to the funeral. She hugged Destiny once, stiffly, and said, "You'll come live with us. It's the right thing to do." But Julia never made Destiny feel wanted. She made her feel accommodated. There's a difference. By 2:15, 17 people filled Julia's dining room and living room. The table was set with china I'd never seen before. White with gold trim, probably expensive, probably purchased in the last month because Julia liked to impress people. Candles flickered. Wine glasses gleamed. Everyone was laughing, talking, complimenting Julia on her beautiful home and her exquisite taste. I brought out the food, one dish at a time. The ham first, glazed and glistening, garnished with pineapple rings and maraschino cherries. Patricia, David's mother, gasped. "Oh my word, Julia, did you make this?" "Mama made it," Julia said without looking up from her wine. "Well, it's gorgeous." No one said anything to me. I was a ghost moving through the room. I brought out the greens, the mac and cheese, the yams, the rolls. Each dish received polite murmurs of appreciation directed at Julia. I didn't mind. I wasn't cooking for applause. I was cooking because it was Thanksgiving. And in my family, Thanksgiving meant abundance. It meant no one went hungry. It meant love, even if the word was never spoken aloud. Finally, everything was on the table. I stood in the kitchen doorway, wiping my hands on my apron, waiting to be called in. Julia stood at the head of the table, raising her glass. "I just want to say thank you all for being here," she said, her voice warm and gracious. "Family is everything, and I'm so grateful we can all gather together in our home." Our home. I'd contributed $18,000 to the down payment on this house 2 years ago, but it was their home. And share this beautiful meal. Everyone raised their glasses. Someone said, "Hear, hear." And then Julia looked at me, really looked at me for the first time all day. "Mama," she said, her voice light, almost cheerful, as if she were about to offer me a compliment. "Yes, baby?" She smiled, a small, tight smile. "You'll eat in the kitchen, after we're done. Staff eats last." The room went silent. Not the kind of silence where people are shocked or offended. The kind of silence where people are uncomfortable and don't know where to look. I stood there, still holding the dish towel, and felt the room tilt. Staff eats last. I had heard those words before, 50 years ago, when I worked in white people's houses during the summers to help pay for school. When I was made to eat in the kitchen, away from the family, because that's where I belonged. And now my own daughter, my own flesh and blood, was saying them to me. Destiny's mouth fell open. "Mom, what?" "Destiny, not now," Julia said sharply. David looked at his plate. Patricia coughed quietly into her napkin. No one defended me. No one said, "Julia, that's not right." They just sat there, forks poised, waiting to see what I would do. I looked at my daughter, at her perfect hair, her perfect outfit, her perfect table in her perfect house. And I realized something I should have realized a long time ago. She didn't see me as her mother. She saw me as a servant, an obligation, a woman who existed to make her life easier and then disappear when it was convenient. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I just walked very calmly to the table, picked up the platter with the ham, still hot, still heavy, and walked out of the dining room. Then I picked up the bowl of greens, the mac and cheese, the yams, the rolls. I loaded them carefully into my arms, balancing them with the skill of someone who'd spent a lifetime carrying things. "Mama, what are you doing?" Julia's voice rose, sharp and incredulous. I didn't answer. I walked to the front door. "Where are you going with that food, Mama?" I opened the door and stepped out into the cold November air. The tray was heavy, but I didn't stumble. I walked down the driveway, past the cars lined up along the street, past the neighbors' houses with their wreaths and their porch lights and their families inside, oblivious to what was happening 3 doors down. I walked 4 blocks to my old house, the one Patrick left me, the one I'd lived in for 36 years before Julia convinced me to move in with her because "It's too much for you, Mama," and "We'll take care of you." I unlocked the door with the key I'd never stopped carrying. Inside, the house smelled like dust and stillness. The furniture was still there, covered in sheets. The kitchen was dark. I turned on the light, set the food on the counter, and stood there for a long moment, catching my breath. Then I made myself a plate. I sat down at my own table, the one Patrick and I bought at an estate sale in 1979, the one where we'd fed our daughters thousands of meals, the one where Grace used to do her homework while I cooked dinner, and I ate. The ham was perfect. The greens were perfect. The macaroni and cheese was perfect. And for the first time in 2 years, I tasted my own food, really tasted it, without interruption, without criticism, without being made to feel like I should be grateful for the privilege of feeding people who couldn't even be bothered to say thank you. My phone rang 11 times that night. Julia. I didn't answer. She left 3 voicemails. Message 1, 4:47 p.m. "Mama, this is ridiculous. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Call me back." Message 2, 6:23 p.m. "I don't know what you think you're proving, but you need to bring that food back. People are asking questions." Message 3, 9:15 p.m. "Fine, keep the food, but we need to talk. Soon." I deleted all 3 without listening to them a second time. I slept in my old bed that night. The mattress was the same one Patrick and I had bought in 1983, sagging in the middle from decades of weight and use. It wasn't comfortable, but it was mine. I woke up at 5:30 the next morning out of habit, even though there was no one to cook for. I made myself a cup of coffee, black, the way Patrick used to make it, and sat in the kitchen, watching the sun rise through the window above the sink. The house was quiet, deeply, almost aggressively quiet. No television, no children, no Julia calling from upstairs, asking where the cinnamon was or why the toast was taking so long. Just me, and the ticking of the clock Patrick's father had given us as a wedding present. I thought about Grace. God, I thought about Grace. If she were still alive, she would have stood up for me. She would have said, "Julia, that's Mama. What is wrong with you?" But Grace was gone, and I was alone in this. Except I wasn't entirely alone, because sitting on my kitchen counter, next to the remains of the Thanksgiving feast, was my purse. And inside my purse was my phone. And on my phone was access to something I hadn't looked at in months, my bank account. I pulled up the app, logged in with the password Grace had helped me set up years ago. The screen loaded slowly, and then I saw it. Checking account balance, $12,483.67. That wasn't right. I knew for a fact I'd had over $60,000 in that account 6 months ago. Patrick's life insurance, my savings from 30 years of working as a cook at the hospital, money I'd been careful with, money I'd planned to leave to my granddaughter so she could go to college without debt. I clicked on recent transactions, and my blood went cold. November 18th, withdrawal, $4,200. J. O'Reilly Thompson, authorized user. November 3rd, withdrawal, $3,800. J. O'Reilly Thompson, authorized user. October 27th, withdrawal, $5,100. J. O'Reilly Thompson, authorized user. I scrolled down and down and down. The withdrawals went back 2 years, sometimes 2 or 3 a month. Amounts ranging from $1,500 to $6,000, all under Julia's name, all marked authorized user. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. She'd been taking my money for 2 years, systematically, quietly, while telling me I was too old to manage my own finances, while making me feel like a burden, while treating me like staff. I went back further, pulled up statements from the last 3 years, downloaded them, printed them on the old printer in Patrick's office, the one that still somehow worked despite not being used in a decade. By the time I was done, I had 47 pages of evidence spread across the kitchen table. The total came to $47,318.52. $47,318.52. Gone. I sat there, staring at those numbers, and I felt something inside me crack. Not break, crack, like ice on a frozen lake when the temperature starts to rise. A slow, inevitable fracturing. I thought about all the times Julia had said, "Mama, you don't understand how expensive things are these days." All the times she'd said, "We're taking care of you. The least you can do is help out." All the times she'd rolled her eyes when I asked about my bank statements, saying, "I'll handle it. Don't worry yourself." She'd made me feel stupid, helpless, like I couldn't manage my own life. And all the while, she was stealing from me. I didn't sleep Friday night. I sat in Patrick's old office, surrounded by bank statements, going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. I found more. Credit card statements in my name that I'd never opened. Total balance, $23,400. Used at luxury boutiques, high-end restaurants, a spa in Charleston I'd never heard of. Email receipts for online purchases I'd never made. Furniture, electronics, clothing, all shipped to Julia's address. And then I found something else, something that made my stomach turn. An email from October sent late at night. The sender was Julia. The recipient was her husband, David. Subject, "Don't worry." Message, "Stop stressing about the credit cards. I told you Mama has enough. She won't even notice. She barely checks her statements anymore. Besides, she's living with us. She should be contributing more than she is. This is just making up the difference. Everything's fine." I read it 3 times. Each time I felt colder. She won't even notice. I printed the email, added it to the stack. By Saturday morning, I had 93 pages of documentation. Bank statements, credit card bills, emails, receipts. A paper trail so clear, so damning, that no one could deny it. I also found something else. Something that changed everything. Buried in my email, an email account I rarely checked, was a message from Golden Star Casino Online, dated 4 months ago. Subject, account suspended, payment required, message. Dear Catherine O'Reilly, your account has been temporarily suspended due to a negative balance of $11,847.29. Please submit payment within 30 days to restore access. Catherine. That was my legal first name, though I'd gone by Kathleen since I was 6 years old. Someone had opened a casino account in my name. Someone who had access to my social security number, my bank accounts, my email. Julia. I clicked through to the account history. The username was KAR Kitchen. My initials plus a word Julia probably thought was clever. The transaction history showed hundreds of bets, slots mostly. Blackjack, roulette, losses far exceeding wins. Over the past 18 months, over $12,000 had been deposited into this account from my checking account in increments small enough that I might not notice each one individually. She wasn't just taking my money to pay for luxury goods. She was gambling it away. Sunday morning, I went to church. Second Baptist Church on Coleman Street, where I'd been a member for 43 years, where Patrick and I were married, where we baptized both our daughters, where we said goodbye to Grace. I sat in the third pew from the back, same seat I'd sat in for 4 decades. The choir sang His Eye is on the Sparrow. I closed my eyes and let the music wash over me, trying to find peace, trying to find clarity. After the service, I stood in the fellowship hall with a styrofoam cup of weak coffee, and that's when Loretta Mae Johnson found me. Loretta was 74, sharp as a tack, with silver hair she wore in 2 long braids and a habit of saying exactly what she thought without apology. "Kathleen Washington O'Reilly," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like lavender and peppermint. "Baby, I've been praying for you." "Thank you, Loretta." She pulled back, holding me at arm's length, studying my face. "You look tired." "I am tired." "More than tired. You look burdened." I didn't mean to cry, but something about the way she said it, the gentleness, the recognition, broke something open in me. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. Loretta handed me a napkin. "Come sit." We sat in 2 folding chairs in the corner of the fellowship hall, away from the crowd. "Tell me," she said. And I did. I told her everything. Thanksgiving, the money, the casino, the emails. When I finished, Loretta sat back, her jaw tight. "Lord have mercy," she said quietly. "That girl is gambling?" "You knew?" Loretta hesitated. "Baby, I seen her. At the casino in Shreveport, 2 months ago. I was there with my sister-in-law for her birthday. We went to see a show. And I saw Julia at the slot machines. She was intense, like she couldn't stop." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I thought about it," Loretta said, her voice heavy. "But I didn't know for sure it was a problem. I thought maybe it was just a one-time thing. And you know how people are. If I'd told you and been wrong, I'd have caused trouble for nothing." "You wouldn't have been wrong." "I know that now, and I'm sorry I didn't speak up." I shook my head. "It's not your fault." Loretta reached into her purse and pulled out a small piece of paper with a phone number written on it. "This is Bernard Hayes," she said. "He's a lawyer. Good man. Used to do civil rights work back in the 70s. Now he helps elders with financial abuse cases. My sister went to him when her son tried to pull something similar." I took the paper, staring at the number. "Kathleen," Loretta said, gripping my hand. "What Julia did? That's not just disrespect. That's theft. That's elder abuse. And baby, you need to protect yourself, because if she's done it once, she'll do it again. She's my daughter." "I know, but that doesn't give her the right to rob you blind." I folded the paper carefully and put it in my purse. "Will you call him?" Loretta asked. I looked at her. At this woman who'd known me for 40 years, who'd sung beside me in the choir, who'd held my hand at my husband's funeral and my daughter's funeral, who saw me, really saw me. "Yes," I said. "I'll call him." That night I sat at my kitchen table with the stack of papers in front of me, and I dialed the number Loretta had given me. The phone rang 3 times before a deep, steady voice answered. "Bernard Hayes." "Mr. Hayes," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "My name is Kathleen O'Reilly. Loretta Mae Johnson gave me your number. I need help." "Tell me what's going on, Mrs. O'Reilly." And for the second time that day, I told my story. But this time I wasn't crying. I was clear, precise. I gave him numbers, dates, specifics. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Mrs. O'Reilly," he said finally, "what you're describing is felony elder financial abuse. Do you understand that?" "I do." "And you want to pursue this?" I closed my eyes. Thought of Thanksgiving. Thought of Julia's face when she told me to eat in the kitchen. Thought of Grace's letter, the one I'd found the night before. "Mama, don't let Julia make you small, promise me." "Yes," I said. I want to pursue this. Good, Bernard said. Come to my office Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Bring everything you have. I will. Mrs. O'Reilly? Yes? You did the right thing by calling. We're going to fix this. I hung up the phone and sat there in the silence of my house. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Power. Monday morning came cold and gray. I woke at 5:30, made coffee, and laid out my best church clothes. A navy dress with white piping that Grace had helped me pick out 3 years before she died. I wanted to look dignified, strong, like a woman who knew her worth. Bernard Hayes's office was on Monroe Street, above a barber shop and next to a bail bondsman. The building was old brick, the kind that had seen decades of struggle and survival. The waiting room had worn carpet and 4 mismatched chairs, but it was clean, respectful. The walls were covered in framed photographs: Martin Luther King Jr., Thurgood Marshall, Ruby Bridges, John Lewis. A sign above the receptionist's desk read, "Justice delayed is justice denied." A young woman with braids and kind eyes looked up when I entered. "Mrs. O'Reilly?" "Yes." "Mr. Hayes is ready for you. Second door on the left." Bernard Hayes stood when I walked in. He was tall, somewhere in his mid-60s, with silver hair cropped close and reading glasses perched on his nose. His office was small but organized, bookshelves packed with law books, a desk covered in neat stacks of folders, and more photographs on the walls. Photos of protests, sit-ins, court victories. "Mrs. O'Reilly," he said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, warm. "Please, sit." I sat in the chair across from his desk, setting my purse and the manila folder, now bulging with 93 pages of evidence, on my lap. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Hayes." "Bernard, please." He sat down, folding his hands on the desk. "Loretta spoke highly of you. She said you were in trouble and needed someone who'd fight for you." "I don't know if I need someone to fight," I said slowly. "I just need someone to tell me what's real, what's legal, what I can do. That's what I'm here for." He gestured to the folder. "May I?" I handed it to him. He opened it and began reading, his expression neutral at first, then increasingly troubled. He pulled out a yellow legal pad and started taking notes. Specific dates, dollar amounts, transaction codes. After 20 minutes, he looked up. "Mrs. O'Reilly, this is textbook elder financial abuse. Your daughter had authorized user access to your accounts, which is legal, if she was using that access for your benefit. But this?" He tapped the papers. "Casino gambling, personal purchases, credit card debt in your name without your knowledge or consent? This crosses into criminal territory." "Criminal?" My voice was quieter than I intended. "Yes. In this state, financial exploitation of an elderly person is a felony. It carries a sentence of 2 to 10 years, depending on the amount stolen." He paused, watching my face. "The documented total here is $47,000. That's aggravated elder abuse." I felt dizzy. 2 to 10 years in prison? That's the maximum, but yes. I thought of Julia, of the little girl who used to climb into my lap and ask me to read her the same book 5 times in a row, of the teenager who argued with Patrick about curfew and then cried on my shoulder when he said no, of the woman at Thanksgiving who'd looked at me like I was nothing. "I don't want her to go to prison," I said. Bernard leaned back. "Then what do you want?" "I want my money back. I want control of my own life. And I want her to understand that what she did was wrong." "That's fair. We can work with that." He made another note. "But I need to be clear with you. If we file a police report, which I strongly recommend, the DA's office will make the call about prosecution. You can choose not to press charges personally, but if there's enough evidence, they may proceed anyway." "Why would they do that?" "Because elder abuse is underreported and underprosecuted. When they get a solid case, they want to make an example, to deter others." I nodded slowly, absorbing this. "What do I do first?" "First, we go to the bank. We revoke Julia's authorized user status immediately. We freeze any joint accounts. We request full transaction histories going back 3 years. He looked at me seriously. "This is going to get ugly, Kathleen. Your daughter will know you're taking action. She will be angry." "She's already angry," I said. "I left Thanksgiving with the ham." A small smile tugged at Bernard's mouth. "Loretta mentioned that." Good for you. It felt good. I bet it did. He closed the folder. Can you be at First National Bank at 11 this morning? Yes. Good. I'll meet you there. Bring your ID, your social security card, and any debit cards you have. We're taking back your accounts today. At 10:30, I stood outside First National Bank on Broad Street, clutching my purse. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from adrenaline. From the strange, intoxicating feeling of doing something for myself after years of letting others make decisions for me. Bernard arrived at 10:50, carrying a briefcase. Ready? Ready. We walked in together. The bank was busy, a Monday morning rush of people depositing checks, withdrawing cash, asking about loans. I approached the counter and asked to speak with a manager. The woman who appeared was younger than I expected, early 30s, with straightened hair and a professional smile. I'm Angela Morrison, branch manager. How can I help you today? My name is Kathleen O'Reilly. I need to make some changes to my accounts. Of course. Do you have your account number? I pulled out my checkbook and showed her. She typed into her computer, then looked up. Yes, Mrs. O'Reilly, checking and savings. What changes would you like to make? I'd like to remove an authorized user from both accounts. Julia O'Reilly Thompson. Angela's fingers paused over the keyboard. Your daughter? Yes. May I ask why? Bernard stepped forward. I'm Mrs. O'Reilly's attorney. My client is revoking access due to unauthorized transactions. We'd also like to request a full transaction history for the past 36 months. Angela's professional smile faltered. I see. Let me pull up the account details. She typed for a moment, her expression shifting from neutral to concerned. Mrs. O'Reilly, I'm seeing some significant activity on these accounts. Frequent withdrawals, online transfers. I'm aware, I said. That's why I'm here. Okay, we can absolutely remove the authorized user. I'll need you to sign some forms, but I should tell you, there's a recurring automatic transfer set up from your checking to an external account. $500 every 2 weeks. My stomach dropped. What external account? Angela checked her screen. It's listed as JOT Investments, LLC. The account was set up 18 months ago. I looked at Bernard. He was already writing this down. Can you cancel that transfer? He asked. Yes, but Angela hesitated. Mrs. O'Reilly, if there's been unauthorized access, I need to file an internal fraud report, and you may want to consider filing a police report. We're aware, Bernard said. Let's start with the account changes. Angela nodded and began printing forms. As I signed each one, revoking Julia's access, canceling the automatic transfer, requesting a new debit card, I felt lighter, stronger, and then I heard a voice behind me that made my blood run cold. Mama, what are you doing? I turned. Julia stood 10 feet away, still in her gym clothes, leggings, a fitted jacket, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked confused. Then she saw Bernard, saw the stack of papers on the counter. Her expression changed. Confusion to realization to panic. Mama, what is this? I'm making changes to my accounts, I said calmly. What kind of changes? The kind where you no longer have access to my money. Julia stepped closer, her voice dropping. Can we talk about this privately? No. Mama, please. Mrs. O'Reilly doesn't need to explain her decisions to you, Bernard said, his tone professional but firm. These are her accounts. She has every right to manage them as she sees fit. Julia's eyes locked on him. Who are you? Bernard Hayes. I'm Mrs. O'Reilly's attorney. The color drained from Julia's face. Attorney? Mama, why do you have an attorney? I didn't answer. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw it. The fear, the calculation, the desperate scramble to figure out how much I knew. Angela returned with more papers. Mrs. O'Reilly, I'll also need you to review these recent transactions and initial any that you recognize as unauthorized. She handed me a printout. 16 pages of transactions. I started going through them, marking the ones I hadn't made. There were dozens. Julia watched, her face tight. Mama, we can talk about this at home. No, I said again. You're embarrassing me. Embarrassing you? I looked up from the papers. Julia, you stole from me. You opened credit cards in my name. You gambled away my money. And you're worried about being embarrassed? I didn't steal. Then explain this. I held up the printout. $11,000 to Golden Star Casino, In my name. Tell me I authorized that. Julia's mouth opened, but no words came out. Tell me I authorized $500 every 2 weeks to Jot Investments. Tell me I bought a $4,000 bracelet from Cartier. Tell me I agreed to any of this. Mama, you can't, because I didn't. People were starting to stare. Angela looked uncomfortable, glancing between us. And then I heard another voice, young, shaking, furious. Mom, stop. Destiny stood in the doorway of the bank, holding her phone in one hand and a laptop bag in the other. She looked at Julia with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Not anger, disgust. Destiny? Julia's voice cracked. What are you doing here? Grandma Kay asked me to come. That wasn't true. I hadn't asked Destiny to come, but I wasn't about to contradict her. Destiny walked over and set her laptop bag on the counter. Can we use a conference room? Angela, looking relieved to escape the lobby drama, nodded quickly. Yes, right this way. The conference room was small. A table, 6 chairs, a water cooler in the corner. Destiny set up her laptop while Julia stood by the door, arms crossed, radiating defensive energy. Bernard sat beside me. Angela hovered by the door, clearly unsure if she should stay or go. You can stay, Destiny said to Angela. You're going to want to see this. She opened her laptop and turned the screen toward the table. On it was a folder labeled Evidence, Mom. Julia's face went white. Destiny, what is that? It's everything you've done to Grandma Kay for the past 2 years. Every lie, every transaction, every nasty thing you said when you thought no one was listening. Destiny clicked on a file. A spreadsheet appeared, color-coded and meticulously organized. I started tracking in February 2023, Destiny said, her voice steady but trembling slightly. After I saw you transfer $3,000 from Grandma's account to yours, I thought maybe it was a mistake, or maybe Grandma knew, but then I saw you do it again, and again. She scrolled down. The spreadsheet showed dates, amounts, transaction codes, all cross-referenced with screenshots. I screenshot every transaction. I logged into Grandma's account. Yes, I know her password because she trusts me, and I documented everything. Destiny looked at Julia. Did you know Grandma's total balance was $63,000 in January 2023? Julia said nothing. It's now $12,000. You took $51,000 in under 2 years. 51? I whispered. I thought it was 47. There were 4 more transactions last week, Destiny said, clicking to show me. After Thanksgiving, 1 for $800, 1 for $1,500, 2 smaller ones. I felt sick. Bernard was writing furiously. Ms. Morrison, are you seeing this? Angela leaned forward, looking at the screen. Yes, Yes. Destiny clicked on another folder. Audio recordings, 17 of them. Want to hear? Destiny, don't. Julia's voice was desperate now. Destiny clicked play. Julia's voice came through the laptop speakers, tinny but clear. David, stop worrying. I told you Mama won't notice. She barely knows how to use a computer. And even if she did, what's she going to do? Kick me out? She needs us. Another recording. She's fine, Patricia. She has enough money. She's just being dramatic. Old people get like that. Paranoid. Forgetful. Another. I swear if I have to listen to one more story about your grandfather used to or back in my day, I'm going to lose my mind. She acts like she built the world with her bare hands. Destiny stopped the recording. The room was silent. Julia was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. I didn't mean... Yes, you did, Destiny said. Her voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. You meant every word. You've been treating Grandma like she's stupid and useless and in the way, and the whole time you were robbing her. I was going to pay her back. With what? Destiny's laugh was bitter. Your negative bank balance? The credit cards you maxed out? The casino account you think no one knows about? Julia's head snapped up. How do you... I know everything, Mom. I know about the gambling. I know you've been lying to Dad about where the money's going. I know you told him you got a bonus at work when really you just stole more from Grandma. I know because I've been watching you. For 2 years. Julia collapsed into a chair, her head in her hands. Bernard looked at Destiny with something like awe. How old are you? 16? You did all this at 16? My mama taught me to pay attention. to watch out for the people I love. Destiny looked at me, her eyes shining with tears. Mama Grace told me, if anything ever happens to me, you take care of Grandma Kay. Don't let anyone hurt her. I promised, and I've been keeping that promise. I couldn't speak. I reached for Destiny's hand and squeezed it. Bernard cleared his throat. Miss Morrison, you'll need to file that fraud report now. And Mrs. O'Reilly, we need to go to the police station. No, Julia sobbed. Please, Mama, please don't do this. I looked at her. My daughter, my firstborn, the child I'd nursed through fevers and nightmares and heartbreaks. And I said the hardest thing I'd ever said in my life. Julia, you stole from me. You lied to me. You made me feel small and stupid and like a burden. And you did it for 2 years while I fed you and cleaned your house and took care of your children. My voice shook. I loved you. I still love you. But I will not let you destroy me. Mama, here's what's going to happen. I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Mr. Hayes is going to file a police report. You're going to attend Gamblers Anonymous. I want proof, weekly. You're going to sell that big house and live within your means. You're going to get a job that actually pays you. A real job, not whatever you've been pretending to do. And you're not going to contact me for 6 months. 6 months? Julia's voice broke. 6 months. No calls, no texts, no showing up at my house. You're going to use that time to figure out who you are when you're not spending other people's money. And if I do all that, then we'll talk, maybe, if I'm ready. And if I don't, Bernard spoke up, then we prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. And with this much evidence, he gestured to Destiny's laptop. You'll be convicted. No question. Julia looked at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't give me back 2 years of my dignity. Sorry doesn't give me back the money you gambled away. Sorry is a start, but it's not enough. I stood up, gathering my purse and the papers Angela had given me. Destiny, baby, let's go. Destiny closed her laptop and stood. Julia reached for her. Destiny, please. Don't, Destiny said, stepping back. I'm done, Mom. I'm done watching you hurt people I love. I'm done making excuses for you. We walked out of the conference room together, Bernard following behind us. Angela stayed with Julia, presumably to deal with the fraud report. Outside, the November sun was bright and cold. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs. Destiny hugged me tight. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, Grandma. I was scared you wouldn't believe me. Baby girl, you saved my life today. Mama Grace would be proud of you. She'd be proud of you, too. We stood there for a moment, holding each other, 2 generations of women who'd learned the hard way that love without boundaries is just permission to be hurt. Bernard walked over. Mrs. O'Reilly, I'm going to file the police report this afternoon. They'll want to interview you, probably tomorrow or Wednesday. Are you prepared for that? Yes. And you're sure about the ultimatum? 6 months, conditions, or prosecution? I thought about it. About Julia's face when she was crying. About all the years I'd made excuses for her, smoothed things over, let things go because she didn't mean it, or she's under a lot of stress. I thought about Grace, dying at 34, holding my hand and saying, Mama, don't let Julia make you small. I'm sure, I said. Bernard nodded. Then let's go make it official. We got in his car, Destiny came with us, and drove to the police station. The building was gray concrete and fluorescent lights, smelling like coffee and old carpet. But I didn't care, because for the first time in 2 years, I was taking control of my own story. And it felt like freedom. 6 months later, I woke to sunlight streaming through lace curtains I'd sewn myself 40 years ago. The ones Julia once told me were outdated and needed replacing. I'd taken them down from her house the week after Thanksgiving, washed them, and hung them in my own bedroom window where they belonged. It was May now. The azaleas in my front yard were blooming pink and white. The garden boxes I'd built in March, with Destiny's help and YouTube tutorials, were full of tomatoes, herbs, and collard greens. My knees complained every time I knelt to weed, but I didn't care. This was my garden, my dirt under my fingernails, my sweat, my life. I made coffee the way Patrick used to, strong, black, in the percolator that took forever but tasted like home. I sat at my kitchen table with the newspaper, reading about things that mattered and things that didn't. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Content. Not happy in the fireworks way, just steady, grounded. Like a tree that had survived a storm and found it was still rooted. The police investigation had taken 3 weeks. Detective Maria Rodriguez, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who reminded me of Grace, had interviewed me twice, reviewed all of Destiny's evidence, and built what Bernard called an airtight case. The district attorney's office sent Julia a letter in January. Comply with the conditions set forth by Kathleen O'Reilly, or face felony charges. Julia chose compliance. She'd sold the big house in March, moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town, got a job, a real job, as an office manager at a dental practice. Her paychecks, according to the monthly reports Bernard received, went to rent, groceries, and $500 toward the debt she owed me. So far, she'd paid back $3,000, only $48,000 to go. She'd also been attending Gamblers Anonymous every Tuesday and Thursday evening at St. Luke's Episcopal Church. I knew because part of the agreement was that her sponsor, a woman named Carol, had to send Bernard confirmation emails. Carol's emails were brief but consistent. Julia O'Reilly Thompson attended May 1st, participated, stayed for fellowship. I didn't ask Destiny how Julia was doing. Destiny didn't volunteer the information. We'd both agreed that some distance was necessary. Healthy, even. I spent my days differently now. Tuesdays, I volunteered at Restoration Kitchen, a soup kitchen run by Second Baptist. I chopped vegetables, stirred pots, served plates to people who reminded me that I wasn't the only one who'd been knocked down by life. Thursdays, I had lunch with Loretta May, usually at the diner on 5th Street where the sweet tea was too sweet, and the cornbread was never as good as mine, but the company was perfect. Fridays were for Destiny. She'd come over after school and we'd cook together. I taught her how to make Grace's favorite lemon pound cake, how to season cast iron, how to tell when collard greens were done just by the smell. She taught me how to use my smartphone, how to video call, how to find recipes on Pinterest. "Grandma Kay," she'd said one Friday in April, laughing as I squinted at my phone screen, "you're 70, not 100. You can learn this." 68, I'd corrected. "Still, you're sharper than half the kids at my school." And Sundays I sang. I joined the choir at Second Baptist in February. Loretta had practically dragged me to rehearsal, insisting they needed altos and I had the voice for it. I'd resisted at first. I hadn't sung publicly since before Patrick died. My voice felt rusty, uncertain. But the first time I opened my mouth and let the sound out, his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. Something unlocked in my chest. Something that had been held tight for 12 years. Director Williams, a round man with a booming laugh, had stopped conducting and stared at me. "Sister O'Reilly," he'd said, "where have you been hiding that voice?" "In the kitchen," I'd answered, and everyone had laughed. Now, on Sunday mornings, I stood in the choir loft in my burgundy robe, singing harmony and sometimes lead, and I remembered who I used to be. Not just Patrick's wife, not just Grace and Julia's mother, not just the woman who cooked and cleaned and disappeared. Kathleen Washington O'Reilly, singer, cook, gardener, woman who'd survived and was still standing. The knock came on a Wednesday evening in late May. I was in the garden, pulling weeds from around the tomato plants, when I heard it. 3 soft raps on the front door. I stood, brushed the dirt from my knees, and walked through the house. Through the window, I saw her, Julia. She stood on my porch holding a small potted plant, lavender, I thought, and she looked different, thinner. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup. She wore jeans and a plain white t-shirt, nothing designer, nothing flashy. She looked tired, and she looked scared. I opened the door but didn't open the screen. "Hi, Mama," she said quietly. "Julia, I know it hasn't been 6 months yet. It's been 5.5, but I wanted to see you. Just for a minute." She held up the plant. "I brought this, for your garden. I know you like lavender." I did like lavender. Patrick used to plant it every spring. I unlocked the screen door and pushed it open. "Come in." She stepped inside, and for a moment we just stood there in the hallway, awkward and uncertain. She looked around, at the furniture she'd grown up with, the photos on the walls, the house she'd convinced me to leave. "It looks good," she said, "like it's alive again." "It is." She set the plant on the side table. Can we sit? Living room. We sat in the same places we'd always sat when she was a child. Me in Patrick's recliner, her on the couch. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, catching dust motes in the air. I've been going to therapy, Julia said finally. Individual and group, GA 3 times a week. And I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Patricia Okonkwo. She specializes in addiction and family trauma. Good. I wanted to tell you what I've learned. If you'll listen. I nodded. Julia took a breath, her hands twisted in her lap. I've been angry at you my whole life, Mama, and I didn't even know it until Dr. Okonkwo asked me to talk about my childhood. Angry at me? Why? Because of Grace. Her voice cracked. Because she was easy and I was hard. Because Daddy loved her more. Because you loved her more. Because when she died, you grieved like the world had ended, but when I was struggling, when I was drowning, you didn't even notice. I felt like I'd been slapped. Julia, let me finish. Please. She wiped her eyes. I know Grace was sick. I know you were terrified. I know you loved her. But Mama, I needed you too. And you were so focused on her, on keeping her alive, on making her comfortable, on holding her hand while she died, that you forgot I existed. That's not true. When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? Really asked, not just how's work or how are the kids. When was the last time you asked me what I was afraid of, what I wanted, what kept me up at night? I opened my mouth and closed it, because she was right. I couldn't remember. Grace was gentle, Julia continued, her voice thick with tears. She was sweet and easy to love. I was loud. I was difficult. I asked too many questions. I challenged Daddy. I challenged you. And somewhere along the way, I decided that if I couldn't be loved for who I was, maybe I could be loved for what I provided. So I made money. I bought things. I threw parties. I tried to prove I was worth something. You were always worth something. Then why didn't it feel that way? Julia's voice rose. Why did I feel like I was always performing, always trying to earn a place at the table while Grace just got to exist? I sat there, my chest tight, and felt the truth of it settle over me like a weight. I had favored Grace. Not consciously, not maliciously, but I had, because Grace was easy, because Grace didn't push back, because loving Grace felt like breathing, and loving Julia felt like work, and Julia had felt it. Her whole life she'd felt it. When Daddy died, Julia said quietly, I thought maybe finally it would be my turn. Maybe you'd need me. Maybe you'd lean on me the way you leaned on Grace. But you didn't. You just kept going, like you didn't need anyone. I didn't want to be a burden. You weren't a burden, Mama. You were absent, emotionally absent. And when you moved in with me, I thought, finally she'll see me. She'll need me. But you didn't need me. You just cooked and cleaned and took care of my kids like you were the hired help, like you didn't trust me to take care of you. I was trying to earn my keep. You didn't have to earn anything. Julia's voice broke completely now. You were my mother. You belonged there just by existing. But I was so angry at you, at Grace's memory, at myself, that I made you feel like you had to earn it, like you had to prove your worth. And when that wasn't enough, when I still felt empty inside, I started taking the money, the control, the power, because if I couldn't make you love me, at least I could make you need me. The room went silent except for Julia's quiet crying. I thought about Grace, about the way I'd sit by her bedside for hours, reading to her, praying over her, holding her hand. About the way I'd memorized every medication, every symptom, every doctor's name. I thought about Julia during those same months. How she'd offered to help and I'd said, I've got it. How she'd asked if I needed anything and I'd said, I'm fine. How she'd tried to talk to me about funeral arrangements and I'd snapped, not now, Julia. I thought about the years after Grace died. How Julia had invited me to dinners and I'd been too tired. How she'd asked me to watch the kids and I'd said I had other plans. How I'd pushed her away because being around her reminded me that Grace was gone. And I'd never apologized, never acknowledged it, never said, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you the way you needed me to be. Julia, I said, my own voice shaking now. I'm sorry. She looked up, surprised. I'm sorry I made you feel invisible. I'm sorry I favored Grace. I'm sorry I didn't see how much you were hurting. I leaned forward. But baby, that doesn't excuse what you did. Hurt people, yes. But you don't get to steal from me and call it love. You don't get to gamble away my money and blame it on your childhood. I know, Julia whispered. I know, Mama. I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to explain, Doctor. Okonkwo says I have to own what I did and understand why I did it. Both things, not one or the other. I nodded slowly. That's fair. We sat in silence for a long moment. I paid Carol this month, Julia said finally. $500, like I promised. I know, Bernard told me. I'm going to pay back every penny, even if it takes me 20 years. I believe you. And I'm going to keep going to therapy. And GA, because I don't want to be that person anymore. The person who hurts people because she's hurting. Good, Julia stood up. I should go. I needed you to know that I'm trying, and that I understand if you can't forgive me. Or if you do forgive me but don't want me in your life. I just needed to say I'm sorry. And mean it. I stood too. Julia, I do forgive you. Her eyes widened. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean we go back to how things were. Because how things were was broken. I know. It means I'm releasing the anger. I'm choosing not to carry it anymore. Because carrying it was killing me. I took a breath. But we have to rebuild. Slowly. With honesty. No more secrets. No more lies. No more pretending. Julia nodded, tears streaming down her face. Okay, how do we do that? We start small. Sunday dinners. At Destiny's place. Neutral ground. You, me, her. We eat. We talk. We're honest. And we see if we can build something new. You'd do that? I'd try. I paused. But Julia, if you lie to me again, if you take from me again, if you break my trust again, I won't, Mama, I swear. If you do, we're done. Not angry done, just done. Do you understand? Yes. I walked her to the door. Before she left, she turned. Mama? Yes? Grace would be proud of you, for standing up for yourself, for not letting me destroy you. My throat tightened. She'd be proud of you too, for doing the work. Julia smiled, small, tentative, but real. I hope so. She left. I watched her walk to her car, a 10-year-old Honda, not the least BMW she used to drive, and pull away. Then I went back to my garden and finished weeding. Sunday, June 2nd was Second Baptist's 147th anniversary celebration. The sanctuary was packed, 300 people, maybe more. The choir wore new robes, burgundy with gold trim, ordered specially for the occasion. Director Williams had asked me to sing lead on His Eye is on the Sparrow. Solo, just me and the piano. I'd said yes before I could talk myself out of it. Now, standing in the choir loft, looking out at all those faces, I felt my hands shake. Loretta, sitting in the third row, gave me a thumbs up. Destiny sat beside her, phone ready to record. And in the back, I almost didn't see her, was Julia, sitting alone, hands folded in her lap. Our eyes met. She nodded. I nodded back. The piano began. Soft, gentle, the opening notes familiar as breathing. I opened my mouth and sang. Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? My voice was rough at first, unused to this much exposure. But then I found my center, the place Patrick used to tell me to sing from. Not my throat, but my heart. Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? I thought of Grace, of Patrick, of all the people I'd loved and lost. When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is He. I thought of Destiny, carrying her mother's love forward. Of Loretta, showing up week after week. Of Bernard, fighting for me when I didn't know I could fight for myself. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. The sanctuary was silent except for my voice and the piano. I saw Loretta crying. I saw Destiny mouthing the words. I saw Julia in the back, her hands pressed to her mouth. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. And I meant it, every word. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. When I finished, the silence held for a heartbeat. Then the church erupted. Applause, amens, shouts of, "Sing it, sister!" Director Williams was beaming. The pastor stood, hands raised. I sat down in the choir loft, trembling, and Loretta caught my eye from the congregation. She mouthed, "That's my girl." Thanksgiving came around again. This time, I was ready. Destiny and I cooked together in my kitchen. Ham, yes, but also Destiny's contribution, sweet potato casserole with a praline topping she'd found on Pinterest. We laughed. We burned the first batch of rolls. We sang along to Aretha Franklin on my old radio. At 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Julia stood on the porch holding a pie. "I made this," she said. "Pecan, from scratch. It's probably terrible." "Bring it in," I said. We set the table together, Destiny, Julia, and me. 3 generations. 3 women who'd hurt each other and were learning how to heal. Loretta came, of course, and Bernard, who'd become a friend over the months, and Ruth, my neighbor from the apartment I'd left behind after moving back home. Before we ate, I asked Julia to say grace. She hesitated, then bowed her head. "Lord," she said, her voice quiet but steady, "thank you for this food. Thank you for second chances. Thank you for mothers who don't give up on daughters who don't deserve it. Thank you for grace." Her voice caught. "Both kinds. Amen." "Amen," we echoed. We ate. We talked. We told stories. Some funny, some painful, all true. At one point, Destiny asked, "Grandma Kay, do you remember last Thanksgiving?" "I do." "Do you regret leaving with the ham?" I thought about it. About walking out that door. About the fear and anger and uncertainty. About everything that came after. "No," I said. "I don't regret it at all." "Why not?" "Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from a table where you're not being fed. Sometimes standing up for yourself is the only way to teach people how to treat you." I looked at Julia. "And sometimes people need to lose you to understand what they had." Julia met my eyes. "I understand now, Mama." "Oh, I know you do, baby." Later, after everyone had gone home and Destiny was washing dishes, Julia helped me put away leftovers. "Mama," she said. "Yes? Next year, can we do this again? Here, all of us?" I smiled. "We'll see. One day at a time." "One day at a time," she repeated. 1 year later, Destiny graduated from high school in May, valedictorian of her class. She'd been accepted to Spelman College with a full scholarship. She was going to study computer science. I sat in the audience wearing my best dress and a corsage Destiny had surprised me with that morning. Julia sat beside me. Not next to me. There was still space between us, healthy space, but near enough. When Destiny walked across that stage and received her diploma, we both stood and cheered. Afterward, at the reception, Destiny found me by the punch bowl. "Mama Grace would be so proud," she said. "She would be proud of you, baby girl." "And you, Grandma Kay? Look at you, living your best life." I laughed. "Is that what this is?" "Yeah." She hugged me. "That's exactly what this is." That night, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea and watched the fireflies blink in the darkness. The garden was full of tomatoes. The lavender Julia had brought was blooming purple and fragrant. Inside, the house was clean but lived in. Mine. I thought about the woman I'd been a year and a half ago. The woman who walked out of Julia's house with a ham under her arm. Scared. Angry. Lost. And I thought about the woman I was now. 69 years old. Independent. Strong. Loved on my own terms. I'd learned something important in the past 18 months. At 69, you don't have to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's story. You don't have to earn your place at the table. And sometimes, the greatest victory isn't revenge. It's reclaiming your own life. The roast that walked out the door, Thanksgiving 2023, wasn't just a meal. It was the beginning of remembering that I deserved to be fed, in every sense of the word.